The next step is to put in a memory hem so that when you do hem the shirt later, you will know exactly where to fold it. So you're gonna have your iron on a polyester setting, and because we are working with polyester and that can have some blends in there like spandex or lycra, you do not want to touch the iron directly to the fabric. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna have a piece of pressing cloth. Right here is just a piece of muslin that you can use. That can be any 100% cotton fabric. And then you'll take your bottom of your shirt, fold it up 1 inch, and I'm folding it to the wrong side, okay? To measure that, you'll just have your seam gauge with you. And so I'm just gonna finger press it first, fold it up 1 inch, finger press it down, and it does wanna curl on you a little bit, but that's okay. So we'll just press that down. Do that all the way across with your fingers first. So once it is finger pressed, I am going to lay that pressing cloth out across the hem that I'm going to put in here. Okay, so I'm going to lay that up at the top of it, and I just want to make sure that my iron does not actually touch the fabric itself, that it only touches the pressing cloth. And so what you're doing is you're just pressing it until you have a nice crease across the bottom, and that will show you later on when you are putting in the hem at the very last step of the shirt. It'll show you exactly where to fold the hem up so that you can stitch it evenly. So what you have there is just a crease running across the bottom half. This will be your hem later. You don't need to pin it or anything. It's gonna probably open up when you are sewing it, the sides of your shirt together, but you'll always have this memory hem to come back to that helps you figure out what to do at the end of your shirt. You'll now repeat that same process with folding over 1 inch on the front side to the wrong side, folding over 1 inch, putting down the pressing cloth, pressing in your memory hem. We're going to use a 1 inch hem on both the front and back pieces, and then you'll repeat the same steps on your sleeves. You'll put in a memory hem along the sleeve across here, but instead of a 1 inch turn, you're going to do a 1/2 inch right there. So finger press, lay the pressing cloth down, press in the crease. So we're going to be fitting the raglan for your body. You'll want to partner up with someone and have your shirt on over your shoulders. Make sure that you have the front in the front and the back in the back, and you want it to be wrong side out so that when you pin it, you can have the seams on the inside of the shirt where they would normally be. So what I would do is I would start right under here, right underneath the armpit, and we're going to go ahead and put a pin in there. Matching up those two seams, and you're going to try to put your pins in about 1/2 inch in from the edge of the fabric, because that is where the natural seam should be when you are sewing, a 1/2 inch seam allowance, okay? And then you can always take it in more, but on both sides you'll want to pin in about 1/2 inch from the edge, just to see if the original measurements of the shirt are going to be a good fit, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and pin all the way down this side, and then I'll do the same to the other side. And on your body, when you're doing this, you can take it in more in some areas, less in others, depending on the fit. Because I'm just doing this on a mannequin, it is going to probably just be pretty straight down. I'm not going to do many adjustments since I don't have my friend here, but if I were actually measuring this on her, then I could be much more precise and get it exactly how she wanted it to fit. So I'm going to pin up the side like that. Again, this is wrong side out so that I'd be able to go ahead and leave it pinned and just stitch from there. So this is what your shirt's going to look like after you take it off of your partner when you were measuring. You'll probably have pins running parallel to the cut edge. You may have taken your pins out in order to get the shirt off, If you did that, hopefully you marked somewhere how far in your seam allowance was going to be. What I'm showing here is if you're using a standard seam allowance, which is a 1/2 inch. So I had measured in a 1/2 inch along the edge. But before I sew, I do need to go in and repin. So I'm going to put my pins in going perpendicular to the edge. And when I do this, I'm also going to make sure that my edges are lined up really nice. So I'll do that all the way down. If there's areas that are gapping, just remember this is a stretch. So when you're sewing, you'll be able to pull it a little bit and make sure that those ends line up. Make sure that before you do this step that you had put in that memory hem down at the bottom here, and that you'd also done that on your sleeves, unless you are banding your waistband. If you're putting a band around there, you don't have to do the memory hem. And if you're putting bands on your sleeves, you don't have to do the memory hem. For this shirt that I'm making, I'm just doing a standard hem where you roll it under. So you do have to do a memory hem on that, okay? So we're gonna pin down all the way. I need a couple more pins for right here. And it'll end up looking like this side, where it's pinned all the way down. And then you also need to go in, again, we wanna line up right underneath the armpit. For mine, it's right at the red, where the red meets the gray. I pinned that really nice. And then I'm gonna put pins all down the sleeve, okay? So you'll wanna make sure that you've done that to both sides. The key here is when you are, when you're pinning, you just wanna make sure that things match up on the ends. You want the end of your sleeve to match, underneath the arm, and then the low end, okay? So if you get all of those places to match, then you can work your pins out, stretch a little bit along the way to make it all fit together. Just like previously when we were sewing the shoulders in, when we were doing those base stitches, we're going to turn the stitch selector to a 2, increase the stitch length to a 4, then eventually we will be serging over this. I'm gonna start at the end of the sleeve. And again, because I've centered my needle position by putting it in a 2, I'm gonna use the 5/8 of an inch line as my guide, but that's really giving me a 1/2 inch or a 4/8 seam allowance. When you center the needle, it moves it over 1/8 of an inch. All right, I'm gonna pull that first pin out. I'm gonna go under here, lower my needle, lower my presser foot. I am gonna do a back stitch just to hold it in place, but this is going to be serged over, so it's just a temporary stitch. So I'm gonna just put in this basting stitch and take the pins out as I go. And I'll just continue to do that all down the length of the arm, all the way down the waist, and then I'll repeat that with the other side. At this point, what you should have are both of your side seams sewn up with the sewing machine, only using a large basting stitch. And what you need to do next is try the shirt on. So you will either go into the bathroom, in the dressing room, in my classroom, or in the supply room. You can take your partner with you, whoever helped fit you for your shirt, so that they can assist you if needed. But what you can do is turn it on, put it on wrong side out if you want, or if you really want to get a good feel of what it's going to look like, you can flip the shirt so that it is right side out, and then you can try it on. And this is your final fitting, so you're going to try to see at this point, is anything too tight, too loose, or if it is just right. If things are too tight on you, then you are going to have to rip out the stitch that you just made and do a narrower seam. And if the shirt is too loose in certain places, you can go in with a wider seam allowance to make the seams come in closer together. Whatever you do on one side, you're gonna do on the other. So after you try your shirt on, make sure that it fits the way you want it. You can flip it wrong side out again, so that those seams are out here. So if I did determine that I need to take it in, maybe it is just like about a 1/2 inch too big, I'm going to sew in on one side, 1/4 of an inch wider, and then 1/4 of an inch wider on my other side also, so that whatever I'm taking in on one side, I'm going to take in on the other. You don't want to just take in a whole bunch on one side and not on the other, because then the shirt isn't going to fit straight on your body. If your shirt is perfectly fitted, everything is great, and you are just ready to finish it up, then just like you had done on the sleeves, you are going to go over to the serger and serge with the line on the serger foot lined up with your stitch line, and then you're going to be serging along these edges. After you've serged one side, I'm just showing what your shirt will now look like. So you have that serged edge all along the arm, underneath the armpit area, and then all the way down to the bottom. And so now I just will repeat that process on the other side.